Hello Sounders, it's Mick here. I hope you are well. You should be, after watching a heartwarming display by your team, my team, our team, against a side in Leicester City that are newly arrived in the Championship after years in the Premier League in the UK. I'll begin by acknowledging, Sounders, that I wasn't in the King Power Stadium. Thousands of you were, thousands of Pompey were anyway. All power and gratitude to them for using their hard-earned and making the effort to travel to Leicester for a night game. I took the easier route and watched it on the box. And as always, I regretted not being there at a live event. Nothing beats it. Nothing in your own living room, even copious amounts of alcohol, can match the euphoria of being there and the camaraderie of just simply sharing a Pompey experience. But anyway, I didn't, and I'm not going to spend too much time now describing things you saw with your own eyes, Sounders, except when events and individuals stood out and made me think a bit. The first thing to say is that this was a tough gig. Away from home, under lights, against a football team full of players with Premiership experience, whose owners and fans expect, probably demand, but certainly expect to be promoted at the end of the season. Any other result will be a disaster for them. A team that began with players like Ayew, Chowdhury, Daka, Day, Cordova, Reed and Skip. Premiership players on the bench. Like any normal fan, I watched with a degree of apprehension, Sounders. How would our lads, so many of them not long out of Division 1, cope? Well, they did. I think John Mousinho, in his post-match interviews, which are very good, put his finger on the psychology of the game as he so often does. In the first half, we were weighed down by all the stuff I've been talking about Leicester City, their recent history, the fame of their players, the expectation of the crowd at the King Power Stadium. So our team started, they were tentative, slightly defensive, perhaps over careful, a little respectful, fighting for equality, perhaps more than dominance, holding on to what they started with. And so the first half was okay, it was respectable, but we lost a goal, which could be put down to Powder Puff closing down high up the pitch, you remember? Which led to the whole side being turned and run back onto its own goal line in disarray. And the resulting goal for Ramsey. It sort of looked like we were heading by half-time to an honourable defeat. Not unexpected. But we were by no means embarrassing or disastrous, just being put in our place by Leicester City. As you know, as you would expect anyway by now, I was monitoring the social media at half-time for comment and reading, therefore, a swell of complaints, which is always near the surface by some Pompey keyboard warriors, you know the ones. And players like John Swift and Chaplin and even Colby Bishop, and certainly our manager, were coming up for a deal of criticism. Just by a few, I hasten to say. but I always find it irritating and slightly distressing. For example, there was this: an absolute refusal to change something. This is a criticism of John Mousinho. An absolute refusal to change something which obviously isn't working. Moose is doing that with Swift. Couldn't be more wrong, really, but John Mousinho did do something at half-time. Along with his team, he ordered more aggression, more energy, more self-belief, more risk-taking in terms of commitment to close down and take on Leicester City's players. And pretty quickly, that took the comfort out of the game for the opposition, to such a degree that the King Power crowd, insecure as they must be after a season of failure last term, were silenced. Their team lost momentum, and Pompey simply looked the better side. And more importantly, they backed it up with an equaliser. John Swift, whom, to be fair, has at times looked uncomfortable in midfield, created the break with that beautiful pass with the outside of his boot into the run of Yang Minaok. And then, receiving the ball back, Swift's emphatic finish, beating his marker, transferring the ball onto his left boot to score his first Pompey goal. What a great moment for him, and for the Pompey faithful in the stands, and for us, the armchair critics. And even then, we could have won the game with still more conviction from Bianchini for one, and Colby Bishop, I would suggest. All in all, it tells me what we knew already, that we've got a fine young manager, Sounders, and a really interesting few years ahead of us if we can keep him and Rich Hughes happy, because there's a lot of talent in and around the camp, and confidence can only grow from nights like that one was. I want to say a few words about individual players. Joe Bursey. Well, he had his best game yet for Pompey, surely. He played with a calmness and authority, and he made big saves, came for crosses, looked a Pompey keeper, and he now creates genuine competition with Nicholas Schmidt between the posts. It's going to be interesting. It really was an excellent display. Jordan Williams once again established himself as first choice right back, and apart from his defensive calmness and its sort of nuggety, if I can say the word, nuggety resolve, his low crosses, when he gets further up the pitch, his low crosses into the box deserve better reward at times, it seems to me. Conor Ogilvie had the hardest of nights, dealing with Isahaku Fatawu, a 21-year-old Ghanaian who was named I quote, the best African prospect of his generation in The Guardian, for whom Leicester City paid 17 million euros last year. So Conor Ogilvie from Gillingham had a tough task. But although that showed in the first half, it is typical of Ogilvie that he gets to grips with problems. He doesn't get rattled. He doesn't panic. He gets to grips with problems. And in the second half, Fatawu disappeared without trace. Andre Dozzell had yet another good game and now has the confidence to mix it, I would suggest to you, with the best in the division. Josh Knight has, I think, taken some time to get up to speed in the side and still has a way to go, but I think he now provides a big obstacle to Conor Shaughnessy's automatic return to the side, doesn't he? And he can only get stronger and fitter. Regan Poole had another hard-working appearance in the back four. I can say no. I mean that as a genuine compliment to the guy. Connor Chaplin has still to find his place in this side, and he was replaced comparatively early on, after an hour, by Kosnowski. Marlon Pack, although now visibly lacking a bit of pace, makes up for that with experience, leadership, and just intelligence in midfield. Colby Bishop holds down his place by work rate and power, which we can't do without. But frustratingly, he cannot get on the end of what are admittedly rare golden opportunities presented in and around the box. John Swift, John Massinho admitted they would like to present him further up the pitch, and when he got there, he showed he can score. So it was a great night for him. And Min Hyuk Yang, or Yang Min Hyuk, it's written both ways, Sounders. It doesn't matter. He's growing before our eyes, and as all around him intend, it's an effective footballer that we are seeing come before us, a weapon. He was unlucky not to score his third goal in 3 games, and in the second half he did what he'd been encouraged to do, and he created the goal. Sounders, what a project he is to be part of, to watch. It's a joy. It's worth the season ticket money. Kosnowski came on and continued his progression into the team, which feels to me like a real possibility. Segacic continues to get appearances, and Bianchini, he looked lively, and hard as it is, he just needs to take one of the opportunities presented to him during the admittedly few minutes that he gets on the park. So he's not always warmed into the game when these opportunities occur, but he's got to take one. He can, and he should, and he must take one. Otherwise, one of the other young wide players that we've got coming through going to replace him. Meantime, Terry Devlin had a pretty stiff reminder of just how difficult the defensive side of his full-back role can be. Although, in fairness to him, he also unleashed one of the crosses of the night late on in the game. All in all, it was a good night, wasn't it, Sounders? Unless you're being greedy, and some of us are, I know. And we'll have another great night on Tuesday when we meet the leaders of our division, Coventry City, having a fantastic start to the season. What a night that is going to be. And Sounders, will have our own chance to say thank you to Milan Mandaric for the last time. Play up, Pompey.